let's continue on to chapter 9. We covered this in the review, but let's talk about it now. What are joints? So what are joints? Let's simplify. Don't make it any harder than it has to be. A joint is a connection between two bones. So whenever we use the word O, right, if I was to call a joint by its actual name, and I said the elbow joint is connecting between the humerus and the ulna, how do I describe that? Well, Al is referring to. So I just do a plug and chug. I say humero, ulnar. In this case, instead of ulna, it would be ulnar. But if I said Glenn, so Glenn is the name of my bird, right? And he's the scapula. Glenn O, humeral is referring to my joint that connects between the scapula and the humerus, and that's also known as the shoulder joint. So yes, I'm writing in the board for a reason. I will test you on it. If you're online, if you're in class, it's the same thing. This joint is the elbow joint, and how I test it is maybe I'll use this in the sentence and assume that you know it. This here is the shoulder joint, right? So the shoulder joint is the glenohumeral joint. And this is a ball and socket. This is a hinge joint. We'll cover that shortly. But memorize these two for sure. If I was to say in between the fingers, what's the fingers? Phalanges. What's the word for in between? Inter. So I say interphalangeal joint. So you can name all of the joints because if you know which bones are connecting. So in this case, I have metacarpal and this is phalanges. So I say metacarpal phalangeal joint. It's as easy as that. Don't make it any harder than it has to be. So again, what is an articulation? By definition, an articulation is a joint. It's a connection between two bones. And methods of classification, we're going to go based on functional. So I will test more on this and I'll test on this. Doesn't mean this isn't important, just means that this is more high yield in terms of talking about the joints. Functional, synarthrotic. It is a sin not to help. So that's how I remember. These are immovable joints. These are people that are not helping, right? You're not doing anything. Synarthrotic joints include the sutures of the skull, the connection points between the skull, and then amphiarthrotic. I had mentioned this before. I said the pelvis, right? I can't quite draw it as nicely, but we did the pelvic brim, right? And we talked about the structure that connects between the two pubic bones. So we called it the pubic symphysis. Well, this looks like a symphony, right? An amphitheater. And then all the people are sitting in the back. They're in their little rows, sitting in their chairs quietly. There's a little bit of movement. And then there's also all the orchestra and symphony up on stage. And they're moving a little bit. So there's slight movement in something that's called an amphiarthrotic joint. Got it? So synarthrotic doesn't move. Amphiarthrotic moves a little bit, slight movement. Best example is the pubic symphysis. At least that's what I'm going to test on. And then the last one, freely movable joint.